In 1976, a young woman named Anneliese Michel died in a small town in Bavaria, Germany, after undergoing 67 exorcism rites over the course of 10 months. She was 23 years old and weighed only 30 kilograms. Her death shocked the world and raised questions about the nature of evil, the power of faith, and the limits of human endurance. This is the story of the real exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Anneliese Michel was born on September 21, 1952, in Leibelfing, a rural village in Bavaria. She was the third of 4 daughters of Joseph and Anna Michel, devout Catholics who attended Mass twice a week. Anneliese was a bright and cheerful girl who enjoyed music, painting, and nature. She had a strong religious upbringing and wanted to become a teacher, but everything changed when Anneliese was 16 years old. In 1968, she suffered a seizure at school and lost consciousness. She was taken to a neurologist who diagnosed her with temporal lobe epilepsy, a condition that affects the brain and can cause hallucinations, memory loss, and mood swings. She was prescribed medication, but it did not seem to help. A year later, she had another seizure and wet her bed. She began to see devilish faces and hear demonic voices, especially when she prayed. She became depressed, anxious, and withdrawn. Anneliese's condition worsened over the years. Despite the medical treatment she received, she enrolled in the University of Würzburg in 1973, hoping to pursue her dream of becoming a teacher. But she could not cope with the academic and social demands of college life. She felt isolated, tormented, and hopeless. She started to believe that she was possessed by evil spirits and that she needed to be freed from them. Anneliese's parents sought the help of the Catholic Church and requested an exorcism for their daughter. But the church was reluctant to approve such a drastic measure and advised them to continue with the medical treatment. Anneliese, however, was desperate for a spiritual solution and contacted several priests, begging them to perform an exorcism on her. She claimed that she was possessed by 6 demons, including Lucifer, Judas, Nero, Cain, Hitler, and Fleischmann, a disgraced priest from the 16th century. Finally, in 1975, 2 priests, Father Arnold Renz and Father Ernst Alt, obtained the permission from the local bishop to conduct an exorcism on Anneliese, under the condition that it would be done in secret, and according to the old ritual of 1614. They began the exorcism sessions in September and visited Anneliese at her home twice a week for several hours each time. They prayed, read from the Bible, sprinkled holy water, and commanded the demons to leave Anneliese's body. The exorcism sessions were intense, violent, and exhausting. Anneliese suffered from physical and mental exhaustion and developed wounds, bruises, and broken bones. She stopped eating and drinking, saying that the demons would not allow her to do so. She also expressed feelings of guilt and said that she wanted to atone for the sins of humanity and for the wayward youth of her time. She believed that her suffering was a sacrifice for God and that she would die to save others. The exorcism sessions lasted for 10 months until July 1, 1976, when Anneliese Michel died of malnutrition and dehydration. She weighed only 30 kilograms and had a high fever and pneumonia. Her last words were, "Mother, I'm afraid." Anneliese's death sparked a controversy and a criminal investigation. The state prosecutor charged Anneliese's parents and the 2 priests with negligent homicide, accusing them of failing to provide adequate medical care for Anneliese and of abusing her in the name of religion. The trial began in 1978 and attracted national and international attention. It was the first time that the issue of exorcism was debated in a modern court of law. The defense argued that Anneliese was not mentally ill but genuinely possessed by demons and that the exorcism was the only way to help her. They presented the recordings of the exorcism sessions and the testimonies of the priests and the relatives who claimed that they saw and heard things that could not be explained by natural causes. They also argued that Anneliese was a free and responsible person who consented to the exorcism and refused medical treatment. The prosecution argued that Anneliese was a mentally ill woman who suffered from epilepsy, psychosis, and schizophrenia, and that the exorcism aggravated her condition and led to her death. They presented the medical records, prescriptions, and hospital visits, and the testimonies of the doctors and the psychiatrists who diagnosed Anneliese with various disorders and prescribed medication that could have helped her. They also argued that Anneliese was a victim of religious fanaticism and that her parents and the priests exploited her vulnerability and violated her human rights. The trial lasted for several months and divided the public opinion. Some people supported the defendants and saw Anneliese as a saint and a martyr who sacrificed herself for a higher cause. Others supported the prosecution and saw Anneliese as a tragic and innocent victim who died because of ignorance and superstition. In 1979, the court reached its verdict. The defendants were found guilty of negligent homicide and sentenced to 6 months in prison, suspended with 3 years of probation and a fine. The court ruled that Anneliese was not possessed, but mentally ill, and that the exorcism was not necessary and harmful. The court also ruled that Anneliese's parents should have been excused from the punishment because they had suffered enough, but that the priests should have been more aware of their duties and responsibilities. The verdict was met with mixed reactions. Some people welcomed it as a victory of justice and reason and a recognition of the rights and dignity of the mentally ill. Others criticized it as a failure of justice and faith and a denial of the reality and power of the demonic. The case sparked a debate about the role and relevance of exorcism in the modern world and the relationship between science and religion and between the state and the church. The case of Anneliese Michel remains one of the most controversial and fascinating cases of exorcism in history. It raises questions that are still relevant and unresolved today. Was Anneliese Michel possessed by demons or afflicted by mental illness? Was the exorcism a cure or a curse? Was her death a sacrifice or a murder? The answers may never be known for sure, but the story of the real exorcism of Anneliese Michel continues to haunt and intrigue us.